The thunderous clapping reverberated through the opulent hall of the Grand Hyatt in Midtown Manhattan. Beneath the sparkling light of the ornate crystal fixtures, the scene gleamed like something out of a fantasy. I positioned myself next to my spouse, Marcus Holloway, the co-creator of the tech firm Innovate, graciously receiving the wave of well wishes with a composed grin. This evening celebrated two key achievements: the 5-year mark since the business's inception and the formal reveal that Innovate had now reached a $1 billion valuation. It represented the peak of the endless effort, perspiration, anguish, and prime years that our union had poured into this triumph. I donned a silk dress in deep jade, my locks piled into a sophisticated updo, complemented by understated but bold cosmetics. A profound satisfaction, hard to articulate, swelled within me. Memories flooded back of the instant I chose to leave a bright future in Boston and relocate to the U.S. My acquaintances insisted I was out of my mind, yet I just offered a serene smile. There stood Marcus, the fellow I'd cherished since university, the one I envisioned sharing eternity with. We'd crafted the initial code together, endured sleepless nights pushing through tasks, and stretched our scant funds while supporting one another. Innovate stood as our cherished creation, a vivid proof of our devotion and endurance. Marcus, strikingly dapper in his flawlessly fitted attire, stepped onto the platform. His tone, rich and confident, filled the space. He recounted our path, the myriad obstacles and trials we'd surmounted. He expressed gratitude to the allies and staff who'd journeyed with us. From my spot in the audience, I observed him quietly, brimming with deep admiration. While he served as the innovative mind, I handled outreach and shaped the growth plan. We fit like ideal counterparts, constructing the robust empire that Innovate had become. Suddenly, Marcus's delivery faltered, laced with an unfamiliar sentiment. Gazing into the distance, he declared, "And tonight, I must extend my deepest appreciation to a singular individual, my lifelong companion, who has endlessly fueled my creativity and propelled me through every tempest. That steadfast presence at my side empowered me to transform the boldest visions into tangible success." The audience fell silent in anticipation. Unbeknownst to me, a joyful curve formed on my mouth. I assumed his words honored me. Hadn't I embodied that role throughout our time together? I readied myself to ascend and partake in the accolade. Yet Marcus's eyes avoided mine, directed instead toward the platform's edge. "Chelsea, come forward," he called in a gentle timbre I'd never encountered from him. A youthful figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Chelsea Vance, a recent addition to the marketing department, hired barely more than a year prior. She appeared in a flowing white gown for expectant mothers, unable to hide her prominent midsection. Timidity colored her features, yet a clear glow of accomplishment lit her gaze. As she neared Marcus, he reached out smoothly to assist her, with an effortless warmth that felt profoundly personal. He presented her with a cluster of crimson roses, my personal blooms of choice. Moments froze in place. The gentle melody in the backdrop twisted into a harsh discord, and whispers started to ripple outward. They began as hushed tones but escalated into a chaotic hum, akin to furious insects swarming. Countless stares converged on me, expressions blending intrigue, sympathy, and worst of all, sorrowful mercy. Those glances wounded deeper than any verbal barb. Heat flushed my face, my mouth parched, and my expression locked in place. There I remained, the focal point of scrutiny, no longer the star of my own victory, but a pathetic display of woe. Marcus required no further words. His action, paired with Chelsea's evident pregnancy, served as an unmistakable revelation. Before the entire assembly, he'd broadcast their liaison, his disloyalty, and my utter degradation. Right as our cherished venture soared to new heights, the life I'd devoted my soul to constructing crumbled in plain view. The initial sensation wasn't agony, but a hollow chill that seeped into my core. Ambient noises dimmed to nothing, leaving only the vivid sight of Marcus and Chelsea illuminated together. They formed an appealing pair, the thriving innovator and the vibrant young mother-to-be bearing his offspring. And I, the partner who'd weathered the toughest phases alongside him, morphed in an instant into a dated, cumbersome burden, a mere remnant. The chatter intensified. Poor Alexa, what a tragedy. Never saw that coming. So that's the story. Fragmented remarks piercing my hearing, sliced into my dignity like blades. At the main table, Marcus's mother, Vivian Holloway, regarded me with a blend of smugness and contempt. She'd always disapproved of me, perpetually griping that I was overly assertive and overshadowed her boy. She must have been thrilled. I felt profoundly content in that instant. Drawing in a steady breath, I straightened my posture. Falling apart wasn't an option. Not in this place, not at this time. After all, I was Alexa Thornton, offspring of the formidable Eleanor Thornton, a lady who never once yielded to hardship. Clutching my purse with force, the sharp sting of my fingernails pressing into my skin restored my poise. I fixed my eyes straight ahead at the platform, locking onto Marcus as he averted his stare. In a move that caught everyone off guard, I advanced deliberately toward the stage. Each stride carried unyielding resolve, devoid of any doubt. An eerie hush descended upon the grand hall, the soft rustle of my gown against the carpet the only sound. The crowd seemed frozen, anticipating my next action. Marcus and Chelsea appeared rattled, while my mother-in-law's brow furrowed in wary disapproval. Climbing onto the dais, I placed myself beside Marcus. Seizing the mic from the bewildered host, I faced the assembly and delivered a composed grin, one I never imagined summoning amid such turmoil. "Good evening, honored attendees." My tone rang out steady and assured. I am Alexa Thornton, spouse of President Marcus Holloway and co-founder plus primary stakeholder in Innovate. I halted briefly, letting my eyes scan the gathering methodically. Their shock was evident in every face. Allow me to convey my deepest appreciation to our collaborators and valued visitors here tonight, honoring our achievements. The victories of Innovate owe everything to the faith and backing you've provided. Pivoting to Marcus, whose complexion had drained and body stiffened, I added, I must also acknowledge my husband's poignant address. He's long demonstrated skill and fervor in his pursuits. Next, my attention moved to the financiers, particularly those from Phoenix Capital Group under my mother's guidance, Eleanor Thornton. My delivery grew resolute. Yet given the latest developments as the dominant owner and architect of our firm's expansion plans, I deem it essential to scrutinize the ethical standards upheld by our top executives. A profound quiet enveloped the venue. Pressing on, I articulated each syllable deliberately. As such, I intend to formally urge my mother, Miss Eleanor Thornton, chair of Phoenix Capital Group, to halt any further funding commitments to Innovate on a temporary basis. For true, lasting progress in a business demands that integrity serve as its core principle, above all else. Concluding, I placed the microphone aside amid the stillness. With a last courteous nod to the audience, I descended the platform chin up. I sensed Marcus's dazed scrutiny, my mother-in-law's features contorted in fury, and Chelsea's bewildered countenance as realization dawned on her. His lavish event lay in ruins. I refrained from outbursts or theatrics. Instead, I leveraged my authority to repay the shame they'd thrust upon me. Such was the reprisal from a woman determined not to suffer any assault on her self-respect. Departing the venue without a backward glance, I sought to avoid the disorder I'd sown. My sole desire was to flee that oppressive atmosphere, the prying eyes and the murmurs. I handled the drive solo, my knuckles paling from the strain on the wheel. The sobs I'd restrained throughout the evening now cascaded freely, tracing paths down my face. Yet these weren't signs of frailty. They stemmed from outrage and sorrow. I bypassed the home I'd once occupied with Marcus. It had morphed into an unfamiliar, hostile domain. Instead, I headed straight for my mother's property, the singular sanctuary on earth, where, regardless of my shattered state or sense of loss, acceptance awaited me unconditionally. Her residence rose amid a serene landscaped area, distant from urban clamor. Spotting my vehicle, the attendant hurried to assist at the entrance. President Eleanor Thornton appeared poised as if anticipating my arrival, stationed at the threshold. Though petite, she radiated commanding presence. Forgoing questions, she drew me into her arms. "You've returned home. Nothing else counts, my dear," she murmured tenderly, rubbing my shoulders with care. That embrace, coupled with her straightforward words, dismantled my defenses entirely. I wept as a little girl might, unleashing the anguish and resentment I'd bottled up. My mother allowed the flood until it ebbed, her fingers soothing through my tresses. She understood the necessity of that release. Once composure returned, she guided me to the lounge and poured a steaming mug of chamomile infusion. "You carried yourself with grace," she remarked, her expression mingling fervor and approval. "I've heard the full account. Your poise up there was exemplary. You denied them the chance to demean you." "But, Mom, the ache is overwhelming," I murmured softly. "I can't fathom his reasons for this betrayal. A decade of our bond, half a decade forging the business side by side. Did all that mean so little compared to someone he's barely crossed paths with for 12 months? My mother exhaled deeply, clasping my fingers. "Darling, once a man's affections shift, his harshness knows no bounds. The fault isn't yours. You gave your all as a partner. You merely invested your faith unwisely. But don't stress. Mom's right here with you. No matter if the world comes crashing down, we'll face it side by side." Her unyielding determination acted like a soothing explosion, slowly easing the turmoil in my chest. We remained quiet, yet an unbreakable connection pulsed between us. She wasn't merely a parent to me. She served as my confidant, my guide, and the steadiest support in my existence. Right at that moment, the chime of the doorbell echoed through the house. It turned out to be Elijah, my steadfast aide. He'd stuck by me from the very start of the business and remained the one individual I relied on completely. Anxiety was carved into his features. "Ms. Thornton, you ignored your calls, so I rushed over without delay," he explained in a hurried voice. "I'm sorry to barge in, but I have crucial news that can't wait." "What's going on?" I replied, a wave of dread washing over me. Elijah unlatched his briefcase and extracted a bundle of documents. "Ma'am, we've noticed odd shifts in the firm's finances recently. Multiple hefty payments went out to an entity named Advanced Management Solutions, LLC. After digging around, I found out the head is actually Mr. Holloway's mother's cousin." My mother and I traded looks of sheer dismay. Elijah pressed on, his voice laced with concern. "It seems they're fabricating fake deals to siphon money away from Innovate. The figures aren't trivial, ma'am. Plus, I learned that Mr. Holloway consulted his private attorney multiple times just last month." Each revelation from Elijah hit me like a relentless strike to the skull. The treachery ran deeper than any nightmare I'd conjured. Marcus wasn't simply stepping out. He and his mother were plotting to seize the whole enterprise and abandon me penniless and alone. That evening's gathering wasn't merely a show to unveil his affair. It marked the launch of a scheme they'd plotted with precision. Once Elijah wrapped up, a heavy quiet enveloped the space, interrupted solely by the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. My mother appeared stunned briefly, but she quickly summoned the poise of a seasoned executive. She grabbed the files from Elijah's grasp, slipped on her spectacles, and started scrutinizing each sheet carefully. "Marcus and that woman," she uttered in a voice cold as ice, her jaw clenched tight. "They've gone too far, beyond any acceptable boundary." I perched there, plunging into what felt like an endless void, even as the sting of romantic deceit hadn't yet started to fade. Now it was compounded by the agony of financial sabotage in the venture I'd poured my entire soul into. I'd assumed Marcus had just lost his way, swayed by some fleeting novelty. But this was a deliberate plot. They aimed to strip me of it all, not only my spouse and my household, but my dedication, my ingenuity, and my reputation. Elijah went on detailing his covert findings. Advanced Management Solutions, LLC operated as a dummy outfit with zero legitimate operations. The advisory packs Innovate had inked with them were all sham arrangements, loaded with vague terms on purpose. Over the past 3 months, the diverted cash had already hit tens of millions of dollars. And that's not the worst of it, ma'am. Elijah paused briefly before drawing out another sheet from his case. This is a preliminary version of the divorce settlement I glimpsed on Mr. Holloway's attorney's desktop while retrieving some files. I snapped a photo. With shaky fingers, I accepted the document. It outlined a one-sided split. Marcus pinned all the fault on me. It accused me of obsessing over work, ignoring the household, and shirking my spousal responsibilities. Yet the most vicious section dealt with property split. Every stake in Innovate would transfer to him, claiming he was the main originator and had supplied the core innovations, while I'd shoulder every liability, including the fabricated obligations from their advisory outfit. Signing that would demolish me and saddle me with enormous liabilities. A sharp, acrid chuckle escaped me, so our years together boiled down to a single page brimming with spite and disloyalty. To Marcus and his mother, I'd been little more than a means to an end, a mere rung on the ladder to success. And with their aims fulfilled, they were eager to toss me aside without a second thought. They're even attempting to wipe out any record of your role in the firm's tech base, Elijah added, his outrage evident. They've brought in a different crew to overhaul key components, allowing them to assert the concept was purely Mr. Holloway's from the outset. At those words, tears no longer came. The hurt morphed into a quiet inferno of fury blazing inside me. That tech core represented my entire career. The vision for an intelligent, adaptable business operations platform stemmed from my time in Boston. Marcus had merely handled the coding side, and now he planned to claim sole ownership. My mother pounded the stack of papers. She slammed the documents down on the table. "That's it," she declared with resolve. "We won't just sit back and let them get away with this. Alexa, it's time for you to rise and push back, not for some no-good guy, but to protect your dignity and everything that's yours. I'll stand with you every step." My mom's steely look filled me with a surge of power. Absolutely, I refused to crumble. I needed to battle for my own sake, for all the prime years I'd poured into this, and to hold those betrayers accountable. The road ahead would be tough, yet I realized I had backup. Mom was there, Elijah too, and the facts were in my corner. Bright and early the following day, we jumped into action without delay. Mom reached out to a longtime family acquaintance, lawyer Ribera Robbie Caldwell. She wasn't the flashy type splashed across headlines, but in legal circles she earned respect for her honesty and deep expertise in tricky financial disputes. Her workspace, a world away from the glitz of big corporate outfits, sat in a subdued, unassuming spot in Georgetown, D.C. Ms. Caldwell, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s with silver hair neatly tied in a bun and specs perched on her nose, welcomed us with soothing chamomile tea. As I laid out the whole saga from the party's farce to the proof Elijah had compiled, she absorbed it all quietly, giving nods here and there. Once I'd wrapped up, she responded in a gentle yet commanding tone. "Alexa, my heart goes out to you for enduring all this, but amid the darkness, there's a silver lining. Their rush and boldness at that event handed us a huge advantage. It buys us precious moments to gear up." She picked up the snapshot of the divorce papers that Elijah had obtained and scrutinized each line with care. "A short-sighted and foolish deal," she concluded. "They lowballed you and your mom. Figured the stress from the affair and the baby news would shatter you into signing whatever, but they miscalculated. Robbie, I'm putting this whole matter in your hands. I won't allow them to ruin my girl like this, Mom insisted. The attorney inclined her head. Rest easy, Eleanor. This goes beyond a basic split. It's a clash over assets laced with signs of deceit and siphoning. We won't get mired in the drama of infidelity. We'll leverage it just to show the marriage's total collapse and Marcus's deceitful nature. Our real target lies elsewhere. Her piercing stare fixed on me. Alexa, starting today, let's map out a solid legal plan. Priority 1. Demonstrate your role in launching and growing Innovate wasn't merely cash, it was key ideas and tech at its heart. She pressed on. We'll collect every bit of proof, no matter how minor. Early email threads on concepts, rough drawings, journal scribbles, and accounts from old coworkers who saw your efforts from day one. That's our arsenal. Next, she held up a pair of fingers. We'll go after their fund misappropriation. Elijah spotting that dummy firm is a game changer. Now we dive in, trace the cash trails. It'll expose how Marcus and his mom operated in the shadows, intentionally shortchanging fellow investors, you included. Hearing Ms. Caldwell's straightforward tactical breakdown lifted the fog from my jumbled thoughts. The sense of isolation faded. I felt anchored. This was the ally I could rely on. Got it, counselor, I replied, my tone gaining solidity. I'll follow your lead. I'll hunt down every archived document I've got. Excellent, she replied with a warm grin. Keep in mind, the system favors fairness. The struggle might drag on and wear you down, but with steady effort and solid proof, right will win out. Channel your hurt into resolve, Alexa. That session with Ms. Caldwell sparked fresh vigor in me. Gone was the image of me as a doomed protagonist in my tale. Instead, I'd step up as a fighter, reclaiming my due. The initial move meant confronting history and heading back to what used to be my shared space with Marcus, to unearth the vital clues for the conflict to come. 2 days post our chat with Ms. Caldwell, I resolved to revisit the residence I'd once shared with Marcus as home. My chest tightened with a storm of feelings. That space brimmed with echoes of a decade of romance and wedded bliss. Each nook, every furnishing I'd handpicked and arranged. I'd envisioned spending my days there forever, aging alongside Marcus amid our cozy yard. But these days, navigating its rooms stung like shards underfoot, raw and resentful. I timed my arrival for midday, certain he'd be tied up at work. No desire for an encounter. All I sought was a swift, silent collection of my belongings and an exit. I headed directly to our joint office, repository of the crucial paperwork. The space remained orderly, though the atmosphere hung chill and off. Our wedding picture on the desk now struck as a harsh taunt. I dove into the hunt, sifting through aged folders, prying open neglected crates atop the shelves. At last, I discovered it. An aged brown leather journal tucked away in a wooden chest. It was the very notebook from my time in Boston, filled with impulsive thoughts and the initial outlines of a groundbreaking software for business operations. The sheets had turned brittle and yellow, my script dimmed in spots, yet the illustrations of the framework's design and the annotations on core algorithms remained sharp. This held the essence of Innovate, the undeniable evidence of my role. Clutching the journal, a surge of my drained energy began to flow back. I tucked the journal and a few USB sticks with supporting files into my bag with care. Right then, as I prepared to exit, the door flew open. Marcus stood frozen upon spotting me. He clearly hadn't anticipated my showing up. "What brings you back?" he questioned, his tone laced with caution. "I've returned for my belongings," I answered steadily, masking any hint of feeling. Marcus eyed the bag over my shoulder, a flicker of suspicion darkening his gaze. He stepped inside and slammed the door shut. "Alexa, let's discuss this. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. That episode at the gathering was an error, but your reaction wasn't ideal either. Do you realize the harm you've inflicted on the firm? A bitter chuckle escaped me harming the firm. And what about the firm's welfare when you schemed with your mother to drain its resources? What of our shared history, my dedication, all while you drafted papers to divorce me and leave me broke and indebted? Marcus's expression shifted. He'd never guessed I was aware. What rubbish is this? Who fed you these lies? It doesn't matter the source. What counts is the truth behind it. Enough with the act, Marcus. I'm worn out, too. I met his stare directly. In those eyes I'd once adored, I now detected only deception and scheming. I adored you and placed total faith in you. I sacrificed it all to return here and launch a venture alongside you. And your response? Treachery and a vicious plot. Stunned, Marcus moved closer, reaching for my hand. Alexa, hear me out. It's not what you believe. The fling with Chelsea was a slip-up. My feelings for you endure. We can rebuild. Pull back that request to the investors. Don't discard our joint efforts. I swatted his hand aside and retreated a pace. His pleas now stirred only revulsion. Rebuild? Do you see me as an idiot, Marcus? Is your affection so worthless? And the baby she's expecting, what's your plan for that? Or do you simply brush aside mistakes when the tide turns? I'm not here for your justifications or to plead, I declared resolutely. My purpose was to reclaim what's rightfully mine and inform you I won't endorse any unfair settlement. I'll battle until the finish to protect my reputation and my stake in Invitech. You and your mother ignited this fire. Brace for the fallout. With that, I denied him any retort. I spun on my heel, flung the door wide, and strode away. Marcus called after me, but I pressed on without pause. That clash erased the final trace of attachment lingering in me. No remnants of affection, no glimmers of possibility. Only one route lay open, the pursuit of fairness. Departing that home, a weight lifted from my shoulders. Facing Marcus had stung, yet it was essential. It freed me utterly from the old ties, sharpening my aim toward tomorrow. No room remained for grief. The proof I'd uncovered marked a promising launch, though as lawyer Caldwell warned, the fight ahead would drag on and demand endurance. In the days that followed, Elijah and I labored without respite. We methodically sorted the details and hunted for additional testimonies to affirm my foundational involvement in Invitech's origins. Yet I quickly grasped that fixating only on salvaging my losses from Innovate amounted to a defensive stand. Marcus and his mother retained control of operations and could undermine me endlessly. I required my independent base, a sturdy platform to hold steady no matter the court's verdict. The notion of establishing a fresh enterprise took root in my thoughts, not driven by spite or to rival Invitech head-on, but to affirm my capabilities. I aimed to demonstrate that Alexa Thornton, minus Marcus and minus Innovate, could still craft an outstanding, perhaps even advanced, tech solution. I believed in my power to reconstruct an enhanced, contemporary iteration of the infrastructure I'd devised for Innovate. I shared the concept with my mother. After a brief pause, she offered her full backing. That's the spirit, darling. True fighters proceed like this. Rather than clawing back a rundown dwelling, erect your fresh fortress. Focus on the task at hand. I'll secure the funding. Her endorsement fueled my resolve like nothing else, but I knew fresh concepts and funding alone wouldn't cut it. I required collaborators and skilled experts. That's when Devin came to mind. Devin Hayes had been a university buddy to Marcus and me alike. We three often spent time together back then. Devin was gentle, diligent, and exceptionally bright. Yet, in contrast to the extroverted and friendly Marcus, he tended to be more introverted. I sensed his affection for me, though he never voiced it outright. Instead, he quietly watched over me. Once we graduated, Marcus and I began our romance, while Devin pursued advanced studies overseas and took on global roles. A couple of years back, word got around that he'd come back to the U.S. and risen as a prominent investor in tech startups. I paused briefly before dialing him up. Contacting him after such a long gap felt uncomfortable, but the sound of his kind, recognizable tone on the line melted away my doubts. "Alexa, it's been ages. How have you been?" "Fine, I'm doing okay." "Devin, am I interrupting anything?" "Interrupting? Absolutely not. I'm thrilled you reached out, though. Is everything all right? You sound a bit off." His perceptiveness warmed me. I mustered my resolve and succinctly described my circumstances, along with my intention to launch a fresh venture. I avoided dramatizing the hurt or whining. Instead, I presented the details steadily, like outlining a proposal for business. Devin stayed quiet throughout, absorbing it all. I'd braced myself for sympathy, or at worst condescension. Instead, his response caught me off guard. "I've anticipated this moment, Alexa, the one where you'd break free from Innovate's influence and truly stand out on your own." There was genuine warmth in his tone. "Your abilities far surpass what's been holding you back there. Seriously, Alexa," Devin pressed on. "I've kept tabs on Innovate's path. I always knew its roots lay in your concept. Marcus excels at coding, sure, but you're the driving force behind the big picture strategy. Choosing to strike out solo, that'll rank as the smartest move you'll ever make. Let me know how I can help. Count on my backing, not only as a pal, but as a backer, too. I believe in you, Alexa." Devin's encouragement washed over me like refreshing rain on cracked earth, quenching a deep thirst within. For the first time after the betrayal, someone, a guy, appreciated my skills and real value without viewing me merely as a jilted spouse. That conversation with Devin bolstered my resolve even more. I realized I'd secured my initial supporter for the challenging path stretching before me. Following our talk, events unfolded at a rapid pace. Devin wasn't one for empty promises. He swiftly set up an introduction and connected me with a group of talented recent grads from an elite technical school on the East Coast. These kids brimmed with enthusiasm, smarts, and a fierce eagerness to join something ambitious. As I shared my concept for an advanced, adaptive business operations system, leveraging cutting-edge tools such as AI, their faces glowed with excitement. They were captivated by my outlook and the resilience of a woman who'd triumphed over hardship. Over a series of discussions, we gelled, and so Synergy Tech emerged, a title that captured my aspirations and grit. It symbolized the fusion of innovative tech for the future. We secured a modest, no-frills workspace that was adequately outfitted and bathed in natural light. My young crew and I dove in, toiling around the clock. The vibe at Synergy Tech stood in stark contrast to the recent years at Innovate. No more office politics or scheming, just pure zeal for innovation and collaboration. It felt like I'd circled back to my early professional days, only now I held greater control over my fate and felt far more empowered. Amid this momentum, a surprise guest showed up. Chelsea. She'd requested a sit-down at a serene cafe. She appeared far more worn out than during her flashy entrance at the event. Her swollen abdomen had grown noticeably, and her gestures carried a weighty sluggishness. Gone was the air of arrogance and boldness. In its stead sat a sorrowful expression, eyes brimming with tears. "Alexa," Chelsea started, her voice quivering, "I realize I have no business speaking to you. I messed up badly, but please, I'm pleading. Could you just back off from Marcus?" I idly swirled my coffee, observing what sort of act she might stage next. Chelsea broke down sobbing. "Marcus is struggling so much ever since you pulled the funding. The firm's in turmoil and the stakeholders eye us suspiciously. His mom hounds him constantly. He's dropped noticeable weight. I get that you're furious, but you two shared a decade together. Escalating it this far is dragging him down into despair." She caressed her stomach and went on. "And then there's our baby. This little one deserves no fault here. All I want is for him to enter the world with both parents in a stable home. Please, I'm begging. Withdraw the legal action and don't blow it up further. We'll offer any settlement you demand. I'll convince Marcus. Just drop it." At those words, an ironic faint smile slipped across my lips. What did she think I was? Some pushover whose quiet could be purchased with cash. She and Marcus had shamed me in front of everyone and plotted to strip away all I had. Yet here she was, preaching to me about fairness and a blameless kid. I set my mug aside and met her gaze directly. Done talking. My tone stayed so steady it caught even me off guard. Chelsea looked thrown by how I handled it. For starters, I began, stressing every syllable. Whatever's going on with Marcus and me isn't just some messy romance anymore. It's about unlawful dealings. He and his mom tried to deceive and steal funds. That's criminal behavior, and lawbreakers face consequences. It doesn't involve you or your little one. Next, stop hiding behind your child. If you truly cared for him, you never would have meddled in another family's affairs from the start, or helped cover up their misdeeds. The boy isn't at fault, but grown-ups have to own up to what they've done. Lastly, I rose from my seat. Tell Marcus I want none of his funds. Justice is what I'm after, and I'll keep fighting for it. If you genuinely hope your son gets to keep his dad around, urge him to confront reality and step up to his obligations under the law. That's what's truly right for the child. I didn't stick around for her reply. I simply pivoted and walked out. I could sense her pathetic expression twisting into fury at my back, but it meant nothing to me. The road ahead left no space for frailty or pointless mercy. The true battle was only kicking off. Several weeks following that clash with Chelsea, exactly as lawyer Caldwell had foreseen, Marcus struck back, not through talks or deals, but with a far cruder and more spiteful approach. One daybreak, a legal notice arrived in the mail. Acting as Innovate's CEO, Marcus had filed a suit against me. The lengthy complaint boldly asserted that, post-departure from the firm, I'd exploited vital tech confidentials from Innovate to launch Synergy Tech, inflicting major damage on the business. They sought an instant halt to Synergy Tech's activities, plus reparations in a sky-high sum. It was an obvious flip of the evidence load, aimed at smearing my reputation and smothering my startup in its cradle. Once word spread, the fresh-faced developers at Synergy Tech grew anxious. They dreaded the firm's prospects and the drag of a drawn-out, expensive court fight. I got their fears completely. Rather than waver, though, I gathered the whole team for an assembly. No need to fret, I assured them confidently. This is just their sleazy ploy. The tech core we're building at Synergy Tech draws from entirely fresh concepts and designs, far superior to anything at Innovate. We've got right and equity in our corner. Right now, our job is to stay sharp on the task and craft the top-notch solution we can. I'll manage every bit of the legal side. My poise eased their nerves. Straight away, I brought the filing to Caldwell's firm. Against my unease, she skimmed the docs and grinned. "He's sealed his fate," she remarked. "This hands us the perfect opening. Instead of us dragging them to court, they've set the scene for us to lay out every shred of proof. That Marcus, coddled by his mother, is nothing but an idiot." Guided by Caldwell, we swiftly drafted our counterfiling. We didn't just debunk Marcus's baseless claims, we supplied solid proof of my original contributions. That ancient journal I'd uncovered turned out to be our ace. We duplicated and notarized each page, every blueprint, and submitted them formally. The timeline stood out starkly against Innovate's start date. Plus, we pulled emails dating back over 5 years, from when Marcus and I first bounced early thoughts. Those messages plainly showed me originating and outlining the core principles. On top of that, Caldwell reached out to a pair of ex-Innovate staffers who'd been there since day one. They'd witnessed my late nights fixing bugs alongside them and listened to my breakdowns of the product's direction. They started out reluctant, but my honesty and the attorney's protections won them over to give statements. The initial mediation session unfolded amid heavy strain. Marcus and his counsel swaggered in with files claiming Innovate's innovations were one of a kind. But as Caldwell methodically revealed our proofs, Marcus's demeanor shifted. He gaped at the journal replicas and blanched at the email quotes from the lawyer. When those two old co-workers stepped up, his bravado shattered entirely. He fumbled the judge's queries and mumbled incoherently. Marcus's case, rather than dragging me under, this development dealt a devastating hit to his standing and Innovate's trustworthiness. Whispers started spreading through the tech community regarding his vindictive legal action and his harsh handling of a former partner. On the over-the-counter exchange, Innovate's stock prices started dropping. In that covert battle, I had decisively triumphed in the opening skirmish. The loss in the libel case only fueled Marcus and his mother's fury even more. They saw they couldn't beat me through the courts, so they turned to more sinister and underhanded tactics. Their focus shifted to the vital pieces of our fact-finding process, particularly the individuals familiar with Innovate's shady dealings. Thanks to Elijah's thoroughness and network, he tracked down a crucial contact, Mr. Chen, the ex-head accountant at Innovate. Mr. Chen had spent 3 years there before departing abruptly around 6 months earlier, right as the dubious deals with Advanced Management Solutions, LLC, kicked off. Elijah believed he'd quit to steer clear of the shady dealings and that he held valuable proof. Persuading Mr. Chen proved challenging. He was a mild-mannered guy in his 40s, content with a peaceful existence alongside his spouse and their 2 small kids. During Elijah's first visit to his home, he flat-out declined, insisting he had no knowledge to share. He dreaded backlash and fretted over potential threats to his loved ones. "Mr. Elijah, you must see where I'm coming from," Mr. Chen pleaded, his tone laced with worry. "Ms. Holloway isn't someone to cross. I've got a family to protect. I won't get dragged into this mess." Realizing coercion wasn't an option, I instructed Elijah to take a gradual approach, fostering a bond of reliability, maybe even posing as a concerned acquaintance at times. Gradually, through Elijah's genuine effort and likely Mr. Chen's inner sense of right, he started sharing details. He verified that every agreement with Advanced Management Solutions, LLC, was manipulated under Ms. Holloway's directives to siphon funds. Plus, he was aware of numerous instances of dodging taxes and padding costs within the firm. But right as we figured we'd secured Mr. Chen's full support, Ms. Holloway struck back. She avoided overt intimidation, opting for something more insidious instead. Mr. Chen's wife, employed as an instructor at a private academy, suddenly faced baseless scrutiny from school officials. Their older boy, still in high school, got cornered and taunted by a group of thugs one afternoon on his walk back. Luckily, bystanders stepped in quickly, preventing any real damage. Though these episodes weren't catastrophic, they served as an unmistakable signal. Mr. Chen freaked out. He rang Elijah, his words shaky with fear. "Mr. Elijah, back off my family, I beg you. I can't assist Miss Thornton any longer. If they push harder, who knows what might befall us." When Elijah relayed the news to me, a heavy dread settled in my chest. The anger boiling inside me toward those contemptible folks paled compared to the guilt gnawing at me over Mr. Chen's household. I refused to put blameless people at risk for my own vendetta. "Drop it, Elijah," I said firmly. "No more pushing. Their well-being matters most. We'll find an alternative route." Though it stung as a setback, we had little recourse but to shelve that avenue for now. With a major informant slipping away, our probe hit a wall, and obstacles kept mounting. It dawned on me that this struggle was far more grueling than I'd imagined. My adversaries wielded not just wealth and influence, but were willing to employ the most heartless strategies to prevail. Noticing my downcast mood over Mr. Chen, my mom summoned me to her office one evening. She'd brewed some chrysanthemum tea, and its soothing scent eased my tension. "What's on your mind?" she inquired softly, placing a mug before me. "I'm worn out, Mom. Their tactics are ruthless. I can't bear the thought of bystanders getting hurt on my account." Mom let out a deep breath and gazed toward the shadowed garden outside. "Sweetheart," she continued gently, "in the corporate arena or everyday existence, no conflict comes without casualties. Still, we must recognize our boundaries. Choosing not to lean on Mr. Chen was wise, yet that doesn't signal surrender. To outmaneuver your foe, you need a clear picture of their true nature. Her gaze met mine, profound and steady. Tonight, I'll share a tale with you, the background on your former mother-in-law, Marcus's mom. I was taken aback. Mom had rarely touched on my ex-relatives. She'd typically dismissed them as an ordinary bunch, nothing remarkable. Truth is, Mom started, I've crossed paths with Ms. Holloway for decades, back when we were both novices navigating the cutthroat business landscape. She was striking and sharp even then, but that sharpness came paired with ruthless drive and zero scruples. Mom recounted how, years ago, Ms. Holloway had teamed up with a dear companion to launch a modest sewing operation. As it gained traction, though, Ms. Holloway schemed to charm her associate's spouse while planting fabricated proof to charge her with theft. Ultimately, she seized control of the whole operation, leaving her friend penniless and homeless on the curb. As for Marcus's dad, my mom went on, he was just an honest, hard-working engineer. Ms. Holloway wed him solely because his skills proved handy for running the shop. He spent his entire existence overshadowed by her, never daring to speak up, and passed away as quietly as he'd existed. Marcus matured in that stifling atmosphere, shielded excessively by his mom, absorbing nothing but notions of wealth and dominance. That kid mirrors his mother perfectly. Sure, he's got some ability, but deep down he's spineless, avaricious, and ripe for exploitation. As my mother recounted it all, things started clicking for me. I finally grasped why my mother-in-law behaved with such ruthless precision. Selfishness and disloyalty coursed through her blood, and the fellow I'd once adored, Marcus, was merely a creation shaped by her influence. "What about Chelsea?" I inquired. My mom paused to sip her tea. In my view, that young woman is simply a piece manipulated by Ms. Holloway. She was aware of Marcus's fondness for females and intentionally guided the girl his way. Naive, compliant, and primed to bear him an heir to carry on the family line. What better instrument could anyone devise? She deployed her to bind Marcus tightly and wielded the pregnancy like a tool to shame you. And once her aims are met, heaven knows what lies in store for that poor soul. My mother's breakdown hit me hard. I'd zeroed in too much on Marcus and Chelsea, overlooking the real architect of it all, my mother-in-law. She orchestrated the whole scheme. That insight forced me to rethink my approach. My aim wasn't limited to Marcus anymore. It extended to that sly matriarch. In truth, this battle pitted us against each other. Shortly after resolving to leave Mr. Chen out of it, an unforeseen event unfolded. One afternoon, a courier dropped off a modest parcel at my mother's place. No return address, just a destination note. Rather than a present, the package held a plain black USB stick, unmarked and unlabeled. My mom and I exchanged wary glances. I plugged the drive into my computer with caution. The display showed multiple audio recordings, each titled by date. After a brief pause, I selected the latest one. A voice I recognized echoed out, Ms. Holloway's. "Follow my instructions precisely. Ink the deal, shift the funds, and I'll handle the rest. Alexa remains clueless, and Marcus won't defy me." Then came a man's tone, apparently an attorney's. "Madam, doesn't this carry excessive danger? Exposure could bring accusations of deception, fund misappropriation, and dodging taxes." "Every gamble promises gains," Ms. Holloway replied with unwavering poise. "Once Alexa's out of the picture, Innovate becomes ours entirely. Will cash be an issue after that? Rest easy. We'll make it worth your while." My mother and I sat frozen, barely breathing as we absorbed it. Across the 5 recordings, Ms. Holloway chatted with her attorney, the envoy from Advanced Management Solutions, LLC, and even Marcus. They laid bare the full plot, establishing the shell entity, siphoning money via sham agreements, all the way to seizing control of the firm and dumping the liabilities on me. This proof stood as the ultimate smoking gun, surpassing any swarm of witnesses. "Mr. Chen must have sent it," I whispered. "Has to be. He can't reveal himself, but his sense of right won't allow inaction." my mother agreed, her gaze filled with appreciation. He's decent at heart. We're in his debt. We duplicated the files across multiple spots right away and forwarded duplicates to Attorney Caldwell. She assured us this clinched our success, nearly guaranteed, yet the elation didn't last. That very evening, as my mom and I labored into the night at the Synergy Tech headquarters, her home security alert blared through straight to her phone. She swiftly pulled up the surveillance feed. Grainy footage from the darkness captured two shadowy figures slipping inside via a rear window. They rifled through my mother's office, the very room where we'd accessed the USB earlier that day. We alerted authorities without delay. By the time we reached the scene alongside the cops, the prowlers had vanished. The office lay in chaos, papers strewn about. Luckily, no valuables were missing. Their goal wasn't loot, my mom murmured. They targeted the USB. Ms. Holloway caught wind of Mr. Chen's move. She's frantic to erase every trace. Good thing you played it smart, backing up copies and keeping the master here. The botched break-in underscored the frantic terror gripping that mother-son pair. They resembled trapped animals ready for any reckless act. I realized the era of quiet was done. They'd turn to deadlier tactics next. I balled my hands into fists, vowing to stay sharper and tougher. The battle. The operation had reached its most perilous stage. The botched heist triggered security alerts, yet the ruthless mother and son were desperate to erase any traces. This realization heightened my concerns for Elijah's safety. He'd led the frontline probe, sifted through volumes of details, and now stood most exposed. I phoned him right away, urging extreme caution. "No need to fret, ma'am," he replied, his face set with resolve. "I've got this under control. They don't scare me. My biggest concern right now is that while those audio files are useful, they lack the strength to nail them on tax fraud. We require solid paperwork and financial ledgers." Elijah shared that he remained connected to former colleagues in Innovate's finance team. Cleverly, he secured off-site entry to the firm's core database during off hours when monitoring eased up. Over multiple evenings, he sacrificed sleep, quietly extracting and reviewing massive datasets. His dedication yielded results. He uncovered a concealed ledger tucked away in a secret server section. This parallel account tracked Innovate's actual revenues and outlays, starkly at odds with the polished reports submitted to the IRS. It exposed deliberate tax dodging, amounting to tens of millions of dollars across the prior 2 years. This was the irrefutable evidence, the decisive strike that could haul the pair before the courts. Yet, right as Elijah unearthed the key files, their adversaries caught wind of it. One evening, heading back from the office, 2 unmarked bikes blocked his path, compelling him to halt. 4 intimidating figures dismounted and, without warning, yanked him from the vehicle before unleashing a savage assault. They took nothing, just wrecked his computer and issued a dire warning. "This is your only heads up. Keep prying into matters that aren't yours, and your loved ones are at risk." A good Samaritan rushed the battered Elijah to medical care. He suffered broken ribs and widespread contusions. When my mom and I hurried to his bedside and saw his battered form, it pierced my soul like a knife. His spouse wept bitterly nearby. "Miss Thornton," she choked out through tears, "we have to stop this. They're monsters. We're mere staff. How can we fight back? All I care about is my husband's recovery." I clasped her hand, but emotion clogged my voice, leaving me speechless. Guilt overwhelmed me. Elijah's devotion had exacted a steep toll on him and his kin. "Forgive me," I managed to whisper. Despite the agony, Elijah struggled to prop himself up. "Don't apologize, ma'am. This was my choice. I stand by it." He faced his wife with a raspy tone. "Darling, I'm sorry for alarming you and the little ones, but I refuse to sit back while wrongdoing triumphs through intimidation. I'm fighting not only for Miss Thornton, but for what's right." His gaze met mine. still fierce with purpose. "Ma'am," they grabbed zilch. "I've stashed the vital info in a safe spot. Stay the course. We're on the verge of victory." The following morning, I organized for Elijah, his wife, and kids to seek shelter with relatives in their hometown for the interim. Witnessing his fractured family only intensified my rage toward the scheming duo. His bravery demanded retribution. I vowed those villains would face severe consequences. Elijah's faithfulness was beyond measure, and I'd honor it unwaveringly. About a month later, with Elijah on the mend and the core proof secured by lawyer Caldwell, I resolved to strike publicly. I aimed to rally media scrutiny and industry influence, boxing in the mother-son pair. The chance arose via an invitation to a prestigious finance summit, drawing elite founders and financiers nationwide. I anticipated Marcus's presence there. Post-scandal, Innovate had pushed a PR overhaul, funding galas and ramping up promotions. At the event, Marcus featured as a keynote on tech advancements in the modern era, prime timing to expose his deceit. I arrived transformed, shedding the image of a scorned figure for the poised leader of Synergy Tech. Dressed in a sleek white trouser ensemble and sporting a chic bob, I drew instant focus. Murmurs spread about the tense history between Marcus and me. He seemed momentarily taken aback by my appearance, but soon mustered a phony poise. He even strode over, extending a hand like it was casual chatter. "Haven't seen you in ages, Alexa. Didn't realize these gatherings piqued your interest." "The corporate scene is remarkably compact, President Holloway," I countered. She responded with a matching polite grin, yet declined to shake his hand. "I hope your talk goes well," she added. Marcus delivered his speech without a hitch. He eloquently highlighted Innovate's successes and bold upcoming initiatives, striving to depict the firm as a perfect haven. The audience gave him substantial applause. However, the main event was still to come. In the question and answer segment, following a few standard inquiries from reporters, I raised my hand steadily to speak. Every gaze in the venue shifted immediately to me. The host paused briefly before granting me the opportunity. I stepped forward to the middle of the walkway, grasped the mic, and stared directly at the platform where Marcus lingered with a strained expression. "Good morning, President Holloway," I started in a sharp, steady tone. "I'm Alexa Thornton, head of Synergy Tech. To begin, kudos on your compelling delivery. My query concerns openness in corporate governance, something I believe captivates all the stakeholders gathered today." I halted briefly, letting the anticipation build fully. Based on Innovate's latest financial disclosures, the firm shows robust profit expansion. That said, outlays for advisory services and promotional efforts have surged dramatically, claiming an exceptionally large slice of overall income. From what I've seen, this pattern stands out as irregular. Might you elaborate on this spending breakdown and the true returns from these expenditures for the benefit of investors and collaborators here? My inquiry wasn't an outright charge, yet it pinpointed Innovate's critical vulnerability. It planted serious skepticism regarding the reliability of their disclosed data. The audience caught the underlying implication right away. Up on the stage, Marcus paled noticeably. He hadn't anticipated this twist. He fumbled through vague remarks on extended-term strategies and reputation enhancement, but failed to deliver a solid justification. His unease spoke volumes more than words. I had no need to add further. After thanking him, I slipped back to my chair unobtrusively, though the ripple from my words was profound. Whispers spread rapidly across the hall. Attendees exchanged wary glances. Reporters scribbled notes at a feverish pace. In one fell swoop, I'd shattered the facade that Marcus and his mother had labored so hard to construct. Innovate's reputation cracked beyond repair before the eyes of the entire industry. The expose at the Finance Summit dealt a severe setback to Innovate. Stakeholders started voicing doubts. Media outlets churned out pieces full of conjecture, and the stock value nosedived. In the midst of this turmoil, Marcus's mother, Ms. Holloway, realized she couldn't just watch from the sidelines. She grasped that a head-on clash with me would backfire, given the proof and sentiment favoring my position. Instead, she resorted to her final ploy, a cunning mental assault targeting what she viewed as my soft spot, my mother, President Eleanor Thornton. Ms. Holloway reached out to my mother directly, adopting an unexpectedly courteous demeanor to suggest a discreet chat at a classic tea house, framing it as a mature discussion. After discussing it with me and lawyer Caldwell, my mother agreed. She recognized the setup as a snare, yet also a chance for that cunning veteran to slip up. The tea house sat on a secluded lane, a peaceful haven alive with the trickle of fountains and faint aroma of fragrant smoke. My mother showed up in a sophisticated charcoal velvet trouser ensemble that projected poise and calm. Ms. Holloway had arrived ahead, impeccably groomed but unable to mask her weariness and bitterness. "Eleanor, you made it," Ms. Holloway remarked through a contrived smile. "It's been ages since we last shared a moment alone like this." My mother offered a soft smile in return and took the seat opposite. "Hello, Vivian. I assume this is a matter of significance, or you wouldn't have contacted me personally." Ms. Holloway circled around the issue as she poured the tea. "This involves the younger generation. In their rashness, they occasionally cross lines they ought not to. It strikes me that Alexa has been pushing too far of late. Regardless of their past marriage, one shouldn't corner someone so ruthlessly." The fallout from the summit hit hard. My mother sat quietly, sipping her tea without a flicker of disturbance. Sensing no response, Miss Holloway's patience wore thin. She set her cup down with a sharp clink, her tone turning biting. "Eleanor, let's cut to the chase. Rein in your daughter. We'll generously reimburse her with any sum she demands. Escalating this further harms everybody involved. When the trap snaps shut, the catch suffers. Get my drift?" "No, I don't," my mother answered evenly. "My daughter is simply reclaiming what's rightfully hers. What's unjust about that?" Miss Holloway let out a harsh chuckle, her eyes glinting like daggers. "Fairness. Where does pure fairness exist in our world? You and I are operators in business. Surely you aren't claiming ignorance." "Everybody harbors secrets, stuff they'd rather keep under wraps. Are you certain your Phoenix Capital Group is squeaky clean?" She started revealing her genuine nature. "I can still vividly recall that real estate venture in South Florida from a decade back. You moved swiftly on that too. With some privileged information, you snapped up premium property. Should those details hit the headlines today, how might your backers react? It was an outright intimidation tactic. She leveraged old professional ties and intricate webs of connections to coerce my mom into yielding. She assumed my mother, just like herself, would put her child's well-being second to her ambitions. Yet Miss Holloway got it wrong. Faced with the ultimatum, my mom remained unfazed. She calmly retrieved her phone from her handbag, hit the end recording function, and placed it right there on the table. The display stayed lit, plainly indicating the session had been captured. "Thanks, Vivian," my mom stated in a composed yet commanding tone. "Our full discussion, including that recent intimidation from you, is now documented. I'm confident this recording, combined with the additional proof, will give the officials a fuller picture of the matter." Ms. Holloway's complexion shifted from flushed to ashen. She stuttered in shock. "How dare you?" But my mom cut her off. "Dare what? The transactions you referenced were handled completely above board. I've got no skeletons in my closet. Feel free to probe if you must. However, your behavior right now, pressuring and menacing someone else, is fully captured. Looks like the person in hot water is you." Finishing her words, my mom rose gracefully and smoothed her attire. "The tea hit the spot. Appreciate the invite. Time for me to head out." My mom departed with poise, abandoning a stunned and rattled Miss Holloway in the tea house. She shook from head to foot, her face frozen in utter astonishment. Her final mental ploy hadn't just backfired, it had morphed into damning proof against her. The cunning operator had walked straight into her own snare. Miss Holloway arrived back at her residence, gripped by sheer terror. The encounter with my mom had shattered her remaining assurance and dignity. She hurled a porcelain tea service against the ground, howling like a woman unhinged as she rampaged through the rooms. Marcus, alarmed by his mom's frenzy, hurried over to inquire, "Mom, what happened? Is it all done for?" Miss Holloway wailed, her locks in wild disarray. "That lady captured it all. She laid a snare for me. We're doomed, my boy." She recounted the entire ordeal to Marcus. Upon hearing it, he went rigid, his features paling dramatically. He knew their predicament well, the audio clips from Mr. Chen, the dual ledgers uncovered by Elijah, and now this tape of his mom menacing President Thornton. Piled together, this arsenal of evidence could land them both behind bars. "Mom, what now? Should I approach Alexa and plead for mercy?" Marcus uttered, his voice quivering. His inherent timidity was bubbling up again. "Plead for mercy," his mom barked. "You believe that'll save us at this point. Do you honestly think Alexa or her mom will cut us any slack? Idiot. We've got just one escape route." "What's that?" "Flee," Ms. Holloway hissed through clenched teeth. "We need to vanish before the cops arrive, liquidate every share, grab all the funds, and bolt from the country. Cash opens doors everywhere." In their frantic state, they hastily devised a scheme to siphon off assets. Ms. Holloway reached out to various brokers via her long-standing industry links and arranged to offload all her Innovate holdings at a steep discount below market rates. The deal demanded speed and cold, hard cash. Meanwhile, Marcus handled pulling cash from the firms and private accounts, slowly routing it to overseas havens via backdoor methods. They operated in the shadows, paralyzed by fear. Marcus holed up in his quarters all day, looking worn and weary, murmuring into his phone. Chelsea, her pregnancy already far along, picked up on Marcus's shift and pressed him about it. But she got only snaps and dodges in reply. Her instincts as a woman warned her of trouble brewing. She furtively checked his mobile and recoiled at a notice confirming a single-direction booking to Europe. The seats were for just two, Marcus and his mom. Chelsea crumbled in despair. It dawned on her that she and the baby she bore were mere disposable pieces in a game they were set to forsake. Over on our end, the mother-son pair's every step stayed firmly tracked. From his hideout, Elijah kept a sharp eye on Innovate's dealings via reliable allies. Spotting the irregular dump of massive share blocks and the hefty outflows from the ledgers, Elijah alerted me without delay. "Ma'am, it seems they're gearing up to bolt," Elijah conveyed tensely over the line. Upon getting the update, I acted instantly. I dialed Lawyer Caldwell right away. "Lawyer IT, I believe the moment has arrived." "Got it," the attorney responded with resolve. "Alexa, keep your composure. I'll head straight to the officials right away, armed with every piece of paperwork and proof at our disposal. The web of justice spans far and wide, and even if it moves deliberately, it always delivers. They won't escape this." Darkness enveloped the urban landscape. Inside the opulent estate, the pair of mother and son frantically crammed bundles of bills and files into luggage, aiming to board a plane before sunrise. Unaware that beyond their walls, a silent snare of legal forces had been deployed and was tightening, poised for the perfect strike. That evening, a steady downpour soaked the metropolis. The steady patter of rain against the panes evoked a mournful tune, heralding closure. Despite the late hour approaching midnight, lights blazed throughout Marcus's residence. Tension hung thick in the atmosphere, taut like a drawn string. Mrs. Holloway paced anxiously, pressing Marcus onward. "Speed it up, my boy. The ride to the airfield is due any minute." "All set." "Indeed, Mom," Marcus answered in an exhausted tone. He'd just wrapped up a conversation with a go-between who verified that the final stock transfer had gone through, with the funds set to arrive at a hidden spot. Their frantic scheme appeared to be unfolding as intended. What they couldn't foresee was that Lawyer Caldwell had devoted the whole afternoon to the Federal Prosecutor's Bureau. She'd presented the full affair methodically, from the proof of my intellectual assets to the forged agreements, the dual ledgers, the taped conversations, and the recording of Mrs. Holloway intimidating my mom. The sheer volume of undeniable material stunned the examiners. Considering the gravity of the offenses and the danger of the accused bolting, a detention order and a directive to seize possessions were swiftly granted. Precisely as Marcus and his mom, hauling bags brimming with currency and papers, stepped out to board the idling vehicle, a pair of patrol cars glided up quietly, sealing off the driveway. Doors swung open and a group of officers in uniform emerged. Leading them was a stern-faced detective. "We're with the FBI's Financial Offenses Unit," he announced, flashing the apprehension document at the stunned twosome. "Marcus Holloway and Vivian Holloway, you'll need to come with us to the precinct to address issues concerning the oversight of Inaw Vetch." Mrs. Holloway went rigid. The bag in her grip slipped free, dumping rolls of money that tumbled onto the waterlogged sidewalk, her complexion drained to ashen, her gaze bulging with dread. Their flawless scheme had shattered right at the threshold of safety. Marcus shook violently from crown to sole, his knees buckling, compelling him to brace against the barrier to avoid collapse. "This has to be an error," Mrs. Holloway stuttered. "We're upright entrepreneurs. We've committed no misdeeds." The detective offered no reply, merely gesturing to his team. The duo, mother and son, was escorted to the cruiser, swamped by bewilderment and powerlessness. Concurrently, a separate squad breached the premises to carry out a raid and confiscation mandate. The whole property, along with banking holdings, equities, and every holding under Marcus's and Mrs. Holloway's titles, was immediately locked down. The legal trap had snapped shut, flawless and unyielding. From her vantage on the upper story's glass, Chelsea witnessed it all. Clutching her midsection, she wept without restraint. Their getaway blueprint held no room for her or her child. She'd been cast aside like discarded refuse. Now, beholding the fellow she'd once adored and the lady she'd dreaded hauled off by law enforcement, Chelsea was left with profound void and hopelessness. When Lawyer Caldwell relayed the update, I was in the den alongside my mother. No elation or victory stirred within me. Just an odd serenity settled over my spirit. A turbulent phase of existence had drawn to a close at last. All the bitterness and animosity felt purged by that evening's torrent. The ensuing weeks marked a period of courtroom battles. The Innovate affair, owing to its scale and intricacy, sparked uproar across corporate circles. Bolstered by the rock-solid proof we supplied, the state's attorneys dismantled the full plot with ease. The hearing drew crowds and intense press coverage. I chose not to appear. Reliving the sight of those who'd inflicted such wounds held no appeal. I followed developments via Caldwell's updates and media reports. Before the bench, confronted by the glaring facts, Marcus shattered utterly. He admitted every wrongdoing, from aiding his mom's siphoning of resources to inventing sham obligations and scheming to plunder my holdings post-split. Sobbing uncontrollably, he pinned it all on his mother's goading and demands, pleading for mercy. The once bold, haughty executive was gone. In his stead lingered a frail, pitiable detainee. On the other hand, Mrs. Holloway held her ground to the bitter finish. She rejected the accusations, insisting she was ensnared in a plot, that the tapes were doctored and the financial logs fabricated. She persisted She maintained the facade of an innocent victim right up until the prosecution played the audio of her menacing phone call to my mother. As her own haughty and intimidating words echoed through the hushed courtroom, she crumbled at last, dropping her gaze in quiet defeat. The judge delivered the ultimate ruling, convictions for fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. As the primary offender, Miss Holloway received a 20-year prison term. Marcus, factoring in his admission of guilt and remorse, got 15 years as an accessory. The remaining conspirators faced their own fitting penalties. Invite, the protege I had cherished and guided with unwavering devotion, now marred by financial ruin and graft, was ultimately ruled bankrupt. Though justice prevailed, my soul held no elation of conquest, only a poignant sorrow for that once vibrant initial romance that had spiraled into disaster, and for the irreplaceable years of my early adulthood squandered on lies. A week following the trial's close, I acted on a long contemplated impulse. I made the drive to the serene countryside village where Elijah's family had taken temporary refuge. My aim was to convey heartfelt thanks to the steadfast aide who had given so much on my behalf. Elijah's modest home sat amid lush meadows. The atmosphere there was crisp and tranquil, a stark relief from the city's oppressive haze. Elijah, his spouse, and their kids emerged at the village edge to welcome me with genuine warmth. Their grins were unpretentious and heartfelt. His wounds had fully mended, leaving him visibly stronger and more content. I arrived with presents and a monetary token of appreciation, yet the pair staunchly declined them. "Ma'am, no need for that," Elijah insisted. "My action stemmed from faith in righteousness and in you. Seeing your success is reward enough. Now, if you'll allow it, I'd like to return to Synergy Tech. I truly long for the job." We enjoyed a modest yet soothing dinner together. Amid the family's lighthearted banter and the youngsters' lively talk, a profound calm settled over me. It dawned on me then, amid the tempests we'd weathered, that true value lay not in wealth or achievements, but in bonds of humanity, fidelity, and compassion. That journey swept away the lingering traces of resentment from within me, readying my spirit for whatever lay ahead. 12 months have elapsed since that turbulent evening when Marcus and his mother fled into the wail of sirens, and I, perched by the pane at my mother's home, exhaled as if unburdened. The passage of time mends much, yet it fails to obliterate the marks it leaves. From those wounds, I've drawn the strength to renew myself. My existence didn't halt amid the anguish or conclude amid the treachery. I forged a fresh direction. Relying on my ingenuity and determination, I established my venture. Synergy Tech, the humble startup we launched in a basic space alongside Elijah and a handful of eager developers, has emerged as a beacon in the technology landscape. Early on, we'd pull all-nighters coding over bowls of instant ramen. Securing our initial deal prompted ecstatic embraces and cheers. We pitched relentlessly to backers for capital, enduring the sting of dismissive no's that occasionally sapped our drive. Still, we pressed forward. The pinnacle arrived at the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards ceremony. Bathed in spotlights on an expansive platform, I held steady in my crisp white attire, accepting a gleaming crystal award from a state dignitary. Applause thundered, but it felt transformed. I stood no longer as Marcus's mere echo, nor as some figure poised to claim a title through marriage. I was Alexa Thornton, a self-made innovator, a woman who had ascended beyond all ordeals. Media outlets hurried to proclaim me a symbol of revival in America's tech world. Yet the deepest impact came not from those bold declarations, but from Elijah's beaming eyes in the crowd, full of admiration and the gentle grin of a steadfast companion watching from nearby. A pivotal shift occurred when the judiciary mandated the sale of Innovetech's holdings to settle its obligations. During the open bidding, I claimed a seat up front. What was once my rival enterprise had devolved into a hollow shell. As the core patent for the oversight framework I devised came to the block, I lifted my bidder without pause. Whispers rippled through the assembly. In the end, at a fair sum, I reclaimed it entirely. The instant the deed transferred to me, I shut my eyes in quiet reflection. The loop was complete. Innovate's site of my deepest betrayals and shames now belonged to history, while the fruit of my intellect returned to its originator. No surge of victory or pride swelled in me, merely a deep serenity. One chapter sealed shut, another swung broadly ajar. On a balmy summer dusk, while stopping by a colleague in the hospital's birthing unit, I chanced upon Chelsea. She perched in a corridor, holding a plump infant close. Gone were her high-end outfits. Instead, she sported a baggy top, appearing utterly ordinary. Exhaustion etched her features, yet her expression toward her child brimmed with boundless softness. Spotting me, Chelsea glanced up and went still. No trace of haught, no trace of arrogance or rebellion lingered in her eyes anymore. Just a hurt, isolated young mom. "Alexa?" Chelsea murmured, her voice quivering. I glanced at the baby cradled in her embrace. He slumbered soundly, his tiny mouth twitching like he was lost in a dream. Right then, every bit of resentment I'd harbored melted away. It hit me that this little one bore no fault whatsoever. He hadn't picked his folks, and he was clueless about the shady schemes from before. "How are you holding up?" I inquired. Chelsea bowed her head, and drops of sorrow started streaming down. "I'm truly sorry, Alexa. It's all too far gone now. All I hope is to nurture this boy properly. Could you find it in your heart to pardon me?" I let out a breath. The pardon wasn't really for her, it was my gift to myself. Holding on to bitterness would just poison my own soul. "What's done is done, Chelsea. Look after your boy with care. He deserves a mom who chooses the honorable path." Chelsea pulled her son close and sobbed openly. I gave a subtle nod as goodbye and pressed onward. A weight lifted from me, leaving me feeling unburdened and free. On another evening, Devin and I wandered the seaside in the Outer Banks, North Carolina. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in warm hues, while soft waves lapped at the coastline. I kicked off my sandals and let the chilly surf tickle my toes. Devin kept pace quietly beside me, his company alone radiating serenity. "Alexa," he uttered gently, "you've spent years putting everyone else first. It's time to focus on your own joy, and if you'd ever welcome a companion along the way, I'd be honored to fill that role." I faced Devin. His gaze held warmth and resolve. Rather than reply, I offered a gentle smile. I wasn't quite prepared to dive into romance again, but I recognized I had a true ally, a steadfast companion, a reliable place to rest my head. Side by side, we strolled the endless stretch of sand, our tracks marking the path behind us. Ahead lay the endless ocean and a horizon flushed with the glow of dawn, signaling fresh beginnings in my world. I drew in a full breath. A powerful sense of belief welled up inside me. For even when a woman has lost it all, as long as she clings to her self-respect, her insight, and her bravery, she can rise anew and claim true fulfillment. Enjoyed this tale. And what city are you tuning in from? Drop by in the comments to chat. If the story resonated, show some love with a super thanks. It helps me create more like this. Thanks a ton for your kind backing. Can't wait to hear your thoughts below. Check out the screen for 2 fresh personal journeys I really suggest. Tons more awaits on my channel. Hit subscribe so you don't miss out. Catch you in the next heartfelt account with warmth and admiration.